Let's turn to the metaphors, symbols, and ideologies we live by. Most of this presentation will focus on the use of metaphors, a central feature of language in cultural systems. Without metaphor, we'd be up a creek without a paddle. But hey, I won't rain on your parade. So let's get this show on the road. To express cultural norms, we use symbols. Key symbols such as the flag or Navajo sand paintings are socially acknowledged. They arouse emotions and appear in multiple contexts. Proper use of key symbols follows strict rules. Symbols are usually part of extensive symbol systems as well. Navajo sand paintings are part of ceremonial life and healing and contain symbolic representations of many figures, deities, animals, lightning, rainbows, plants, and other symbols described in the chants that accompany various rites. Metaphors also express meaning through the symbolic use of language. When you say that your anthropology professor made your blood boil, you do not mean that your blood reached 210 degrees Fahrenheit. If that were true, you wouldn't be saying anything. You're indicating that you were furious, and you were using a metaphor to convey meaning, that you were hot with anger. Likewise, when Gabonese call on the village elders to cut an affair, they're speaking metaphorically. They do not mean that the elders have been called to break off an extramarital affair, although that could be the case. Rather, they've been asked to resolve a conflict between two parties. The cutting means to get at the heart of the matter or problem, in short, to judge, or to enable the parties to reach a compromise that restores the peace. By the way, heart of the matter is another metaphor. Metaphor is a figure of speech which makes an implicit, implied, or hidden comparison between two things or objects that are poles apart from each other but have some characteristics common between them. Metaphors draw on a source domain to convey meaning about a target domain. The source domain is a conceptual domain from which we draw metaphorical expressions, such as Mark was a caged animal. Here, caged animal is the source domain. The target domain is the conceptual domain that we try to understand. The target domain is the conceptual domain that we're trying to understand. In the phrase, Mark was a caged animal, Mark is the conceptual domain we want to understand. Obviously, we don't mean that Mark is the caged animal. The target domain is the conceptual domain that we're trying to understand. In the phrase, Mark was a caged animal, Mark is the conceptual domain that we want to understand. Obviously, we don't mean that Mark is physically in a cage. The metaphor caged animal helps us to understand Mark's agitation at being confined in some way, perhaps in a frustrating situation, relationship, or dead-end job. In this case, Mark, the target domain, is a metaphoric subject, while caged animal is the metaphoric predicate. Let's take another simple example. We often use metaphors to speak of love. Love is a river, a hunger, a war, a gift, a rose. The metaphoric subject is love is. The metaphoric predicates are the subject domain from which the metaphors are drawn. When we say love is a river, the metaphor river has a number of entailments. In this case, entailments are the set of understandings that we have about rivers that informs the meaning of the metaphoric source domain. In other words, what is it about rivers that helps us to understand love? For example, a river flows on and on. We could also say, metaphorically, that love flows through us or over us. A river can also overflow its banks. We might say that love also overflows, flooding our being in every waking moment. Rivers can be pure or polluted. When we speak of pure love, we think of love as wholesome, chaste, and unqualified. I'm not sure that I've ever thought of love as polluted, but it can be compromised or made impure by, well, I'll let you think about that. A river can have a strong or weak current. Again, our love can be strong or weak. Rivers end in the ocean. The Great Miami River, which runs near my campus, empties into the Ohio River, which in turn flows into the Mississippi, which eventually empties into the Gulf of Mexico. When we say love is an ocean, we might mean that it is vast and deep. These are spatial metaphors that we're using to convey meaning about a sentiment or an emotion. Rivers in love are capable of sweeping away everything in their path. And of course, we can drown in love, metaphorically that is. And so on. You get the point. Here, rivers entail a whole set of associations or entailments that inform the metaphor when we apply it to the target domain, love. Let's look at the use of metaphors in a different cultural context. In a chapter called The Problem of Symbols in Newer Religion, Evans Pritchard writes that the Nuer of South Sudan referred to twins as birds. He explains this metaphor in general terms of Nuer religious thought. He begins his discussion by saying that for the Nuer, twins are not two persons, they are one person. The Nuer are not saying that twins are one individual, but that they have a single personality over and above their physical duality. In other words, twins, regardless of sex, are one soul in two bodies. Nuer also say a twin is not a person, he is a bird. Evans Pritchard notes that twins and birds are also said to be kin, though the usage may be regarded as metaphorical. When he asked a Nuer whether adult twins would be buried like other people, the man replied, "No, of course not. They're birds, and their souls go up into the air. A twin is not a spirit, but due to his special creation, he is associated with spirit, and therefore, when he dies, his soul goes into the air, to which things associated with spirit belong." Twins are spatially different from regular humans, but live among them. As Evans Pritchard puts it, Nuer treat twins as what they are, men and women. But in addition to being men and women, they are of a twin birth, and a twin birth is a special revelation of spirit. A twin is a person of the above, whereas an ordinary person is a person of the below. Birds are physically different from spirits, but live among them. Both birds and twins are classed by Nuer as children of God. Birds are children of God on account of their being in the air. Twins belong to the air on account of their being children of God by the manner of their conception and birth. Hence, a bird is a suitable symbol in which to express the special relationship in which a twin stands to God. Evans Pritchard concludes that the formula "twins are birds" does not express a dyadic relationship between twins and birds, but a triadic relationship between twins, birds, and God. It's also important to note that, like culture, cultural metaphors change over time in response to changing contexts. Let's take the example of metaphors of the market. Under globalization, metaphors drawn from the domains of the market and mode of production enter into domains that they were previously separate from. For example, when we say the marriage wasn't working anymore, are we using metaphors that come from wage labor or machines that used to work? It was time to move on to a new job or a new marriage. in South America. And remember, he's a chapter in the past. Don't close the book, just turn the page and move on. Repeat after me. I deserve new shoes, this house, this bar of chocolate, money, a better marriage. After I landed an entry-level position, I purchased a starter home and then began a starter marriage. I'm hoping to move up soon. You buy a car, it breaks down. What are you going to do? The point here is that because of the cultural importance of the market in contemporary society, we draw on metaphors of the market to talk about all kinds of things, including relationships. We even view relationships as investments. I invested a lot in this relationship and got a lousy return. Because metaphors are symbolic, their meanings are multiple. A single society may have members who subscribe to different worldviews, which suggests that we might have different understandings of metaphors. When I tell students that for me, college is about banging your head against ideas, I'm speaking metaphorically about critical thinking, but some of my students think that that's really violent. Earlier, we defined ideologies as sets of ideas that defend or challenge particular social orders, frequently characterized by social inequality. Powerful groups often promote ideologies, imposing their worldviews and metaphors on the rest of society. In other words, systems of meaning are also embedded in power relations. These systems of meaning are learned in schools, leisure activities, through language, worship, and employment. As we know, successful people are never born with a silver spoon in their mouth. They always pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. These are examples of ideologies expressed through metaphors that serve to uphold the ideology of meritocracy, that society should be run by those who have the most merit. Of course, those without power can resist this imposition by creating alternative metaphors and worldviews. The British play cricket, which they then exported to the colonies. They taught cricket in New Guinea and the Trobriand Islands as an alternative to feuding and warfare. The Trobriand Islanders adapted cricket to their own worldview, which included ceremonial gift-giving and chieftaincies.